Hello, Tuba Hero here with some ways that I save time in Diablo 3. Most of these are really small time savers, so if it seems like that's too much of a hassle for the payoff, you definitely don't have to do them, but they're things I do, and since they're often activities that occur consistently enough, when you put in dozens or hundreds of hours, that adds up to quite a bit of extra time. You can start the animation of opening your next Nephalem rift before you're actually ready to go into the rift. That way, when you are ready, you don't have to wait on it. So, for instance, right here, I'm gambling, and right about now it's getting ready to be opened, and now I'm salvaging, and now I can go straight in. You can make an exception for the Gears of Dreadlands Demon Hunter, however, because rather than going into the rift and then starting up your momentum stacks, you can actually do that while you're waiting on the animation. It takes about the same amount of time, and then you're at full momentum when you decide to leave because it's Shrouded Moors. After your second gem upgrade, you can hit T to teleport out rather than waiting for all 5 before you start teleporting out. Another small time saver is batching your Book of Cain use. Since it takes the same amount of time for it to identify one item as it does 60 items, it makes sense to wait until you have a full inventory before using it. So, in practical purposes, when you're farming greater ifs, that usually means doing 3 sets, or a set of 3 greater ifs before you use the Book of Cain. Now, this is how full my inventory is after 2 108s. So I won't really be able to fit another set of items in my inventory. So what you have kind of 2 choices here. If you're in a group, it's usually pretty easy to salvage a few items before you just jump into the next one. If you're solo, you might just go and whatever items are left on the ground, just hold control, hover over them, see if you're interested in any of them, and make the decision then on whether to throw some of these items out, because you're probably not hurting on Forgotten Souls, although now with the double bounties you might be. Alright, I've just done my third 108, and it's what our groups would often call a spend phase. So obviously by doing 3 and then using the Book of Cain, only have to wait on that timer 1 time instead of 3 times. But also I think just in general, if you're in the mode to go and salvage a bunch of items and evaluate items, it goes a lot quicker if you're already there doing it than it would be if I went to go do this and I went and did another GR and I did this and did another GR. So I think salvaging 3 sets of items saves time over salvaging 1 set of items 3 times. So like I might want those gloves for my necro, non-ancient, not interested in Firebird shoulders, not really interested. So I'm going to just throw this in the Necro tab. Barely fits. And then I can gamble all of these blood shards right in a row rather than having to make several different trips to gamble blood shards. And I just remembered my monk is gambling bracers, but maybe I'll get some nice cold ancient nems to use on the monk. Ooh, they actually are cold, but not ancient. Oh, okay, so I might be able to use those on the monk. Nice. Another time saver that I'm a big fan of is if you're trying to play multiple classes and get started on another one, you can gamble the offhands for that class from any class. So even though the orb, the phylactery, and the mojo have X's on them, I actually can gamble those from Demon Hunter and get the legendaries or even set items for those other classes. This is really handy if you have really great gear, especially on softcore on your main, and you're just kind of tired of just never getting an upgrade because your gear is already so good, and you want to, you have a few thousand Paragon and you want to try that out on another class, you can start gearing that class or even get the hardest pieces from that class's build just from your main without having to play that class first. And actually, if they ever rebalance the 3 sets that you can gamble this way, you can gamble Tal Rasha for Wizard, you can gamble Firebirds for Wizard, and you can gamble Zunimasa for Witch Doctor. You can get those set items, and they'll be stuck as non-ancient, but you could get as many as you want and get as good of non-ancients as you want just by using Blood Shards and then the Cube before you even start playing that class. So you could actually get almost the entire build that way without relying on gear share, just using your own blood shards and the cube. If you have a lot of regular puzzle rings that you want to run for gems and gold, but it feels too tedious to run all these regular vaults, one thing I like to do is just run up to greed, picking up the gems and the materials and the gold, and not actually fighting greed. It saves quite a bit of downtime. It makes it more interesting because you're just going through and picking up loot instead of waiting so much. And while it is pretty efficient gold-wise to do the greed fight because it's a huge chunk of gold from the chest, this way, if you don't run into a gelatinous goblin, you don't really get many legendaries. So actually, you could probably have like 10 puzzle rings in your inventory and get all the way through them without filling your inventory until you hit a gelatinous, basically. So that's how fast I ran that. Let's see how much time it takes now to go attack greed. So, gotta go over here, gotta wait. Walk in. Gotta wait. Still waiting. Okay. Waiting. So I've already had like 3 cutscenes, and then if you want to stay in the same game, you've got a minute to wait. Now this part, you could just teleport out of the game and it would be just the same as what I was doing, but I find that entire process, I just am better at regularly running through my regular puzzle rings if I want to collect a whole bunch of gems and gold, if I skip that section. If you're ever trying to leave a jail map, you can go this way around it. But if you got a teleporting class, you can save a lot of time by just aiming for somewhere around here on the steps and just teleporting it. So I try not to go like straight down. I try and go left a ways so I actually land on the stairs. If you get this tile in a rift, you can save a bit of time by just teleporting down to the exit. This is one of my favorite examples. So this is how you would normally have to go through here, moving as fast as you can if you can't teleport. So normally a speed build would be moving faster than that, and I just simulated that with dashes on the monk because I don't have really a movement speed on right now. But if you know about this, you can actually skip that entire corner just by positioning your mouse kind of out in the open, far away from you, and making the dash or teleport. It's really handy. If there is a breakable over here, it makes it almost impossible, if not impossible, to make it. Like I've had channeling shrine and just failed over and over and over trying to get to this spot. So if you don't make it on your first few tries, that's probably what's going on, and you should just go around. But usually it works. So this one took me longer to realize than I care to admit, because it kind of breaks a core of the game, which is that if you're trying to teleport through a wall to something behind a closed door, you first have to open that door. Well, in this case, you don't. For some reason, this particular tile set, you can go through these walls even with closed doors that you can't walk through. So anytime I'm going through this area, if I've got a teleport, I will go into this side because it's where a pylon can spawn, and then move on through. Sometimes I'll check the other side as well just to see if there's an elite in there, but yeah, if you're just trying to rush through a Halls of Agony, I just port through on this side. Okay, let's say it's very early in the season, and you're trying to finish Chapter 2, and you see fully equip one of your followers, but you weren't equipping them with any of the loot that you found on the way to 70, or maybe you're in a group so you haven't even thought of them at all. A really easy way to equip them is you will need to obtain a relic, so you could just craft one of those, but rather than having to like buy loot or craft loot or look for it to drop from that point forward for the other slots, you probably have entirely things that they could equip. So you just throw gear that you have onto them. Maybe the weapon won't work, but everything else should. And if they have a shield, you would want to change that. But if you just go to one of your followers, you could pick the Scoundrel or the Enchantress and not have to worry about that. And they'll count. Fully equipped. And then you just take your stuff back. Another season journey shortcut is that if you happen to do a few rounds of bounties, or if maybe even just one act on the way to 70, you've done all your 5 acts of bounties, but you still don't have 5 jewel crafting recipes. Now, however few you're short, assuming you have a few million in gold, you can go to Squirt the Peddler and buy jewel crafting recipes. Because you craft these at the jeweler, they count. The cheapest option is the Hellfire Ring for 2 million. It is unfunctional in season. It will not be able to be crafted, but it counts as several recipes on its own. If you think you're only one short and you have 5 million, you might as well go for one of the more useful Hellfire Rings or Amulet that you can actually craft. Thanks for watching, and now time for some lip slurs.